Hi, I'm Sherry Bronson. Our guest today is Carlos Harleaux. He is the publisher of Seventh Sign, and he is an author, and we are so excited to have him today. He's going to talk to us about his awesome book, Blurred Vision, but his follow-up is Hindsight 2020, and we want to welcome you to the program, Carlos.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you for having me on
I'm
today.
so glad to have you. So I thought it was important. Your book was awesome. We're here at the Book and Business Expo, and you're here showcasing your talents and your business. First, tell us about Seventh Sign Publishing.
Okay. Seventh Sign Publishing started actually at the beginning of this year, and basically how I got started was kind of thought about it after my first book, actually, which came out in 2011, which was Blurred Vision, and I self-published that book, and there's a lot of work that goes into publishing, period, especially self-publishing, because you don't have that backing of a marketing team or management team to help you through that. So after going through that process, I came in contact with several people who wanted to write books, and I thought, why not create an avenue for them to publish their books as well, and basically kind of do the legwork for them as far as getting it published.
So because the marketing part is a self-published person myself, it's so much work in that.
Right.
Would you not agree?
I definitely agree.
And
Yes.
and it's do you have the resources that you give them the people to contact and how to market their books as well, or how does that work?
What I do is basically help them get to the actual published printed book in their hand, that stage. So what I would offer is setting them up with headshots for promotion, also editing, typesetting the book, and graphic design for the cover. So pretty much it's everything on the front end of that book. And then I would also do promotion on Twitter, Facebook, and things like that, and also vendor events that I do. Definitely give them the heads up on those types of events. But as far as a marketing package,
right,
I don't necessarily offer that, but I definitely do
have the partnerships
give wisdom or
direction
events that I know of.
All right, that's all they need.
Right.
All right. I know how to do the rest. I hear you.
Right.
So that's good to know because I love entrepreneurs, and I want you to talk about, you know, we got Blurred Vision, but before we get into it, I was curious because you were talking about essays and poetry.
Yes.
So tell us the difference between the two.
Well, essays, and this is just, and somebody else may have a different definition, but when I think of an essay, and especially in my second book, Hindsight 2020, it has a mix of essays and poetry, whereas my first book, Blurred Vision, was more of a mix. There's a book, or a poem rather, in my second book that talks about forgiveness. And I have an essay that precedes that, and it goes in depth. It's just pretty much almost like a blog, you could say. And it talks about whatever topic that I want to talk about at that moment, and they tie into the poems that are in my book.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's catch everybody up. Now, talk about Blurred Vision a little bit. Tell us about it and what its purpose was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been writing poetry for about 10 years, and it started off actually as anger and trying to get those feelings out. And, you know, instead of doing something bad, I figured, you know, why not write poetry? I've always loved poetry, but didn't really get into writing it for myself about 10 years ago. And I stacked up so many poems. I had about 300 or so. And I noticed that there seemed to be a common thread with a lot of them. And blurred vision basically means that whenever we're going through situations, like it could be a bad relationship or a friendship or maybe spiritual struggles that you're having, anything that we see as negative is blurred vision in a sense because we can't see clearly. So all the poems that are included in that book, they come from that state of mind, that state of being blurred in a sense in your mind.
That's good. That's good. Now tell us how did you come up with Hindsight 2020, the title?
Okay. Actually, may sound weird, but I've had the idea for my first 3 books, actually, because I'm working on my 3rd book. I've had the titles for those books in my head for probably as long as I started writing poetry, and they never changed. I thought if I get a better title or something else that I like, I'll go with that. But I've had that title for a long time, and even the order of how I wanted them to come out. And Hindsight 2020 is basically just saying after blurred vision, after you leave that state, then a lot of times we look back on situations and then we realize things for what they truly are and not what we thought it was.
That's good. Hindsight 2020.
Right.
Okay. And when I hear that, I think about looking back
Right.
and how it is about, you talked about it as realization as when it comes to love and forgiveness and those kinds of things. You
Right.
you said something to the point as it relates to forgiveness and love.
Right.
So those are examples of hindsight 2020 when you look back.
Right, because I think that we
Yeah.
all, in forgiveness is something that, in a sense, you do have to look back on, because when you're in the heat of the moment of anger or whatever the
That's
situation
good.
is, you're not thinking about forgiveness. That's the last thing, well, at least for me. I'm not thinking about forgiving anybody. At that point, I'm mad and I want to stay mad until I'm
Yeah.
ready to forgive. So it's just that process of letting go of a lot of things. And I think sometimes people think when you look back,
Yeah.
it's always going to be pretty, but that's not
But
always
it's
the
really
case.
not.
Sometimes it's ugly, but at least you know what it is.
Now, what caution would you give a person that's looking back?
I would say the only caution with that is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when we look back, we linger and we stay too long, or we focus on the wrong things and try to figure out why certain things didn't work out and what did I do wrong or what did the other person do wrong, and not even necessarily
Mm-hmm.
related to people interaction, just sometimes with ourselves, because I think we're our own worst critics.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when we look back, we beat up on ourselves, and sometimes it's just a matter of looking back saying, hey, I made this mistake, or I did this wrong, or could have done this better, or hey, I did an awesome job in this, and maybe continue in the same way.
You know what? It's so hard sometimes for us to give ourselves a pat on the back.
Right.
Because we will look at the negative and we will just live and wallow in it instead of, hey, I made one step forward.
Right.
And I struggle with that sometimes too, because perfectionists do that.
Right.
I'm one
That's
of
true.
those people.
That's
so.
right. I understand. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like that too.
So I want you to tell us, because writers are watching this, other people are, what was the hardest part of writing a book of poetry to you? What was hard about that?
I would say the main things are misconceptions and also putting myself out there, which in a way they kind of contradict, because with poetry, everybody doesn't write poetry like this, but the way my books are structured, a lot of the situations or topics in there, they are very personal to me. So it's that matter of deciding, do I want to put this out there, or do I want to say this and maybe let people read it, or do I want to put this in a book, or if I put
That's
this out,
awesome.
is my friend going to be mad at me, or is my family going to be mad at me? So you have to think about all those different things.
Yes.
And I think sometimes too, when people read things, they assume that it's about one thing, and it's really not.
That's
It's
good.
really about something else.
That's good.
Right.
You know what, that just, when you were talking, it reminded me of my first book, Discover Your Power Within. And when I was writing that book, my next question to you is, what did you learn from writing it? And when writing poetry, because when I wrote my book, I learned of how much I had forgiven my mother.
Wow.
And so, what did you learn or discover about you? Because when you're writing poetry, because it's your heart speaking.
Right.
And if you're writing about an issue, I don't care what it is you're dealing with, adversity, hate, forgiveness, you're doing a lot of self-reflection. So what did you learn from writing your poetry?
I'll say that after writing so many, it was very therapeutic. That's probably the best word that I could use for it, because I have about 300-400 poems. All of them I don't include in my books, but every time I write something, it's therapeutic, and it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I had something really bad to get off my chest. I mean, just the fact of writing, I just enjoy it. I don't force myself to do it. It's something that just comes naturally. I could be sitting at work and I get an idea for a poem, so I might type a couple lines until I get home to finish it. But I would say that's the part that I get out of it the most, is that it's very therapeutic.
It's therapeutic. All right, as we get ready and wrap up, I want you to, because when we say hindsight 2020, what would readers get from your book? What will they receive? Yeah.
Well, I'll say they'll definitely be able to see themselves in a lot of the situations that are in the book, as far as scenarios that I'm talking about. Again, there's forgiveness. I talk about spirituality. There's a poem in there I have called Never Let Go, and it talks basically about, it seems like I'm talking about a relationship, but I'm really talking about God. And basically the whole poem is blaming this person for leaving us. And then in the end, it's basically God saying, no, I've been here all alone. It was you that walked away.
I want to shout. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so topics like that. I mean, I like, in my poetry, I really like to write things I think that people can relate to. I have another poem in there called Appetizer. I love food, so I'm relating it to food and basically saying that sometimes people can treat you like you are an appetizer option and not the main course.
Ooh, that's good.
And sometimes you have to let people know that, hey, no, I'm not the appetizer, I'm the main dish.
Oh, man,
Yes.
that's good stuff, Carlos.
Thank you.
Now, I want you to give as a publisher, I want you to give some advice to writers and what you have learned.
Okay. I would say the main thing is don't write for people. I hear a lot of people say that I talk to that are wanting to publish books or they're thinking about getting their book out. Their question is, well, what audience do I target it to? Or who should I market this to? And my answer is always, you write and then you just really worry about that part later because there's always going to be an audience for it. I think when you do events, of course, you do want to target that to a certain audience. But as far as your writing itself, I would say just write. Just write whatever's on your heart, is on your mind, and don't give up on it. Because sometimes the things that even I notice with my poetry, the poems that I want to throw away in the trash, those are the ones people love, and I don't get it. And then the ones I like, some people don't really say anything about those. So you never know what's going to be inspiring for someone else through your story just from you writing.
That's good. Now, what is next for you in Seventh Sign? What's next?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm working on some more books for some more authors. There's currently 2 books published under Seventh Sign Publishing, which is my book, Hindsight 2020, and then also Naked by John Patrick Adams. So make sure y'all go and pick up that book.
Yeah.
It is a great book, and it talks about healing and also self-reflection. So make sure that you pick up that book. Working on a couple of other authors, books that are going to be out this year, and also working on an event or a platform rather called Create Your Own Path. That'll be in December, which will focus on authors and also business owners and just having a platform to share their products and share their work. Working on my 3rd book is in the very early stages. It'll be a poetry book as well. And unless I get another one that comes to me, I probably won't do another poetry book for a little while after that.
Okay.
I've entertained the thought of maybe doing a novel. I don't know if I'd have the patience for that, but I've entertained the thought of it, so that may be something I do next. And then I have my blogs that I do weekly.
That's awesome. All right. So looking at camera, tell people how they can reach you.
Okay.
That's important.
All right. Everyone can reach me at my website. You can definitely check me out there at www.poeticexpressions.com. The spelling is a little funny, so I'll spell that out. It's PEAUXETIC, and then expressions is the rest of it. It's all together, all one word. Or you can email me at poetic.expressions@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
And I want to, yes, it was a great interview. I enjoyed you. You real peeps. You real peeps.
Oh, thank you.
I thank you. I want to thank you for watching today. Make sure you visit SherryBronson.com. Learn more of what we're doing to empower the lives of other people. God bless you, and don't forget to continue to dream by faith.